Good evening, students. Today we are making video on Pride and Prejudice characters, right? Because for understanding the plot, first we need to understand characters and their relations, right? So I'm reading, I'm speaking, and then I have sorted out characters according to families, right? Family, like how many families are participating, uh, are depicted in this novel, and what's their relation, right? So let us see. First family, important family, and whole story is around this family, that is Bennett family, right? So Bennett family is very important family, and two characters are first we meet with two characters, Mr. Bennett and Mrs. Bennett, right? They are husband wife. So I'm talking, I will tell you about Mr. Bennett. Mr. Bennett is an intelligent man with good sense. Mr. Bennett displays an unfortunate disinterest in most of his family besides Elizabeth. He seems very, after spending many decades married to the interminable Mrs. Bennet, his complacency is shaken only when Lydia's her poor decision in Brighton threaten her future. Anyway, I'm telling you, Mr. Bennet is intelligent fellow, and he's father of five daughters, right? So that's a small character of Mr. Bennet. And now come to Mrs. Bennet. That is very important character here. Mrs. Bennet is a foolish and frivolous woman. She lacks any sense of propriety and neglects to provide her daughters with a proper education. She does not interested in education, and she is a foolish kind of lady. Instead, she remains concerned solely with securing them profitable marriage. So her major concern or only concern is that profitable marriage. Her lack of self awareness constantly embarrasses Elizabeth and Mr. Bennet alike. And because of her self awareness, she does lot of mistakes, and that seems very weird, right? So she is a weird kind of lady. And now Mr. Bennet and Mrs. Bennet have five daughters. So first daughter is Jane Austen. So I am reading and then I will explain. Jane Bennet, the oldest Bennet daughter, is beautiful, good tempered, amiable, humble, and selfless. Her good nature does result in a level of naivety, especially when it comes to recognizing the wickedness of others. Her sweetness leaves her vulnerable to injury from insincere friends like Caroline Bingley. A rather static character, Jane remains a model of virtue throughout the novel. So Jane is a eldest. She is an eldest daughter of Bennet family, and she is a very good in all respect. Beautiful, good natured, friendly, very humble, selfless, but she gets uh, hurt from Caroline Bingley. Uh, then she is not able to respond properly. She remains quiet when she is insulted by Miss Caroline. So that's overall we can say that Jane is a good, very good young girl, beautiful, but at the same time smart girl, right? And good natured girl. Now second daughter is Elizabeth. and she is the female protagonist of the novel. Her two names are common, Eliza and Lizzie. Some say Eliza, some say Lizzie, some say Elizabeth. So, the novel's protagonist and the second oldest of her five sisters, Elizabeth Bennet, is lively, quick witted, sharp tongued, bold, and intelligent. She is candid, she is frank, she is bold, and she is very much what outspoken, and she is keen and perceptive, but Elizabeth's pride in that very ability endangers a prejudice that almost hinders her happy future with Darcy. Elizabeth is not impressed by mere wealth or titles, rather, she values propriety, good manners, and virtue. She is a very good girl, Elizabeth. She is not as sundar as her her elder sister Jane, but she is good girl, beautiful, not very beautiful, but intelligent, very lively, and sharp tongued. Whatever is in her mind, she speaks. She is very frank, right? And she has values of good manners, propriety, virtues, instead of title or social status. She does not give much importance all like outer things, right? So this is Elizabeth. Now come to next character. That's a minor character, not discussed much. Mary, next daughter, right? So Mary, the middle Bennet sister, Mary is strangely solemn and pedantic. She dislikes going out into society and prefers to spend her time studying. In conversation, Mary constantly makes awkward and profound observations about human nature and life in general. Some critics believe Mary was a cipher of Austen herself. So, what is Mary is a very like a quiet girl, and she does not talk, introvert girl, and middle daughter of the family, and she dislikes going out into society. So overall, she is a quiet girl and a good girl. And when we discuss the novel, then I we will come to know about Mary, right? So that is, and then in the novel also it is not discussed much, right? Now next is Kitty or Catherine. Catherine Bennet, the second youngest Bennet daughter, right? It's not second youngest Bennet daughter. Okay, second youngest, yeah, second youngest Bennet daughter exhibits little personality of her own. Instead, she imitates Lydia in almost everything until Lydia leaves for Brighton. Then the epilogue leads the reader to hope that Kitty's character improves as a result of spending time with her elder sisters instead of Lydia. So Kitty Bennet is second youngest daughter and exhibits little personality of her own. That is also not discussed much, but instead she imitates Lydia in almost everything until Lydia leaves for. So she and Lydia both are younger daughters, and then they live together, enjoy, play together this way. Then Lydia, the youngest of the Bennet sisters, Lydia Bennet is foolish and flirtatious, and she gratifies her every whim without considering the consequences. Impulsive kind of girl, and she takes decision immediately. She is Mrs. Bannet's favorite daughter, youngest being a youngest daughter. That's why she is favorite daughter of Mrs. Bennet, because they share similar though frivolous interests, and both are foolish kind of this is a very foolish kind of Mrs. Bennet is not very much intelligent. Similarly, Lydia, and then she is obsessed with the regiment officer and lets her lack of virtue and propriety lead her into a near disaster with Vikram. And what happened in without thinking, she takes decision, and she's a little kind of a pampered child, and that's why she takes privilege of it. And that is why she has very good comfort level with Mrs. Bennet. So again, let me tell you that Bennet family, 7 members are there. Husband, wife, Mr. Bennet, Mrs. Bennet. Mr. Bennet is an intelligent fellow. Mrs. Bennet is a very matured, weird kind of lady, and they have 5 daughters: Jane, Elizabeth. Elizabeth is known as Elijah, sometime Lizzie. Then middle daughter is Mary. Then Catherine is also known Kitty, and then Lydia. These are the 5 daughters. But yes, Jane and Elizabeth discuss much in the novel. Mary very little. Then Lydia is discussed. So these are the 5 daughters. Now next family we are going to meet, that's also very important, and that family is uh, that Darcy family. So Darcy family, who is in Darcy family? Mr. William Darcy, brother, Bingley's closet friend, the brother of Georgiana, and the nephew of Lady Catherine de Barrow. So what is the character of Mr. Darcy? An extremely wealthy aristocrat. Mr. Darcy is proud, haughty, and extremely conscious of class differences, at least at the beginning of the novel. He does, however, have a strong sense of honor and virtue, and a degree of fairness that helps him to control his pride after Elizabeth rebukes him for his narrow minded perspective. So he is the hero or male protagonist of the novel, and his full name, Mr. Fitzwilliam Darcy, and brother of 2 sisters. One is Georgiana Darcy, and second one, yes, sorry, he is not he is a brother of one sister, that's a Georgiana Darcy. And 3 members are from this family, and Colonel Fitzwilliam, Darcy's cousin, and Georgiana's guardian, right? So Mr. Darcy is no doubt very well off, comes from well off person, and then financially very strong, wealthy aristocrat, but he has proud, very arrogant, haughty, extremely conscious of class differences. He does not talk, he's a snobbish actually, and he does not talk to the person who comes from lower family or middle class family. He does not talk class family members. So that's he does, however, have a strong sense of honor and virtue. That is just superficial. Afterwards he changes. So this is Mr. Darcy. William Darcy is a has a some what we can say, superior, superiority, but then afterwards he changes, right? So that is Mr. Darcy. Then Georgiana Darcy is Darcy's younger sister, and here Georgiana Darcy, very little character actually. So let me see that Georgiana Darcy is not, yeah, Georgiana Darcy, Darcy's sister Georgiana, 10 years his junior, is quiet and shy, but generally amiable and good natured. She is 10 years younger than her brother William Darcy, and she is friendly, no doubt, good natured girl, but little bit shy. She has great reverence and affection for her brother. She respects her brother along well with Elizabeth from their first meeting, and she respects Elizabeth also. Bingley's sister had hoped that Mr. Bingley would marry Georgiana, thus uniting the uh, fortunes of 2 families. Bingley's sister, when we come meet, next family is Bingley family. So Bingley's sisters, 2 sisters. Bingley's have 2 sisters, and then Bingley, then both the sisters think that Mr. Bingley would marry Georgiana, Darcy's friend, Darcy's younger sister, thus uniting the fortunes of two families. And this way, they both are very well off family, and that is why Bingley's family, Bingley's sister wants to make Georgiana their sister-in-law. So that is the character. She is a shy but very good girl, right? Now Colonel Fitzwilliam, I told you that's the Darcy's cousin and Georgiana's guardian. Now third family, Bingley family. Bingley family is also very important. And first, Charles Bingley. So Charles Bingley is a brother, right? Whose brother Charles Bingley? Charles Bingley is wait a minute, actually I'm reading for you, so you'll come to know a little bit detail of the novel. So Charles Bingley is also that's a wait a minute. Yes, Charles Bingley. So Charles Bingley is also important character of the novel, right? And yes, much like his beloved Jane, Charles Bingley is an amiable and good-tempered person, mostly unconcerned with class differences despite his extraordinary wealth. His virtue proves to be his vice at times, since his modesty leads him to be easily swayed by the opinions of others. A mostly static character, Bingley remains pleasant and in love with Jane throughout the novel. So Bingley loves Jane at first sight, and then he continues the same idea. He loves Jane Bennet. And Charles Bingley is in all respect he is a gentleman, and that's why sometimes he is easily swayed by opinions of others, and that's why sometimes he's not able to take decisions, because he's very emotional kind of fellow, but very good boy. And he is Darcy's best friend and the brother of Caroline Bingley and Mrs. Hertz. Mrs. Hertz, why? Because the another sister is already married, right? Now, so sister, let us know about the sister. So Caroline Bingley. Caroline Bingley is Bingley's youngest sister. She is a superficial and selfish girl. This Bingley, Caroline Bingley, creates problems to others, possessing all the Darcy's class prejudice, but none of his honor and virtue. Throughout the novel, she panders to Darcy in an attempt to win his affection, but to no avail. Her cruelty towards Jane and Elizabeth marks her as a generally unpleasant character. So she is very crooked kind of girl, and yeah, she is the youngest sister of Bingley, Charles Bingley's youngest sister, and she is a very superficial and selfish girl, and possessing all Darcy's class prejudice. And she's also Darcy's does maintains her class, and she does not talk middle class people. And throughout the novel, she tries to tempt, she tries to allure Mr. Darcy, and she wants to get married with Mr. Darcy, but she could not win the heart of Mr. Darcy. So that is Caroline Bingley, little bit negative character, we can say. Now moving to Mrs. Hertz. Mrs. Hertz, Bingley's elder sister. Mrs. Hertz is just as arrogant as Caroline, though she is less involved in attacking the Bennet sisters. And then who tortures Bennet sister? Caroline, mainly Caroline Bingley. But then she's also negative. She's also very rude and cruel kind of lady, Mrs. Hertz, but then not like Caroline, little bit modest also. She seems to have no real affection or esteem for her husband, and she does not respect her husband, right? Now Mr. Hertz Mr. Bingley's brother-in-law is an indolent man. Mr. Hertz does almost nothing but eat and entertain himself by playing cards. He never says an intelligent word in the entire novel and seems to be solemnly concerned with the quality of food. And he likes food and something. And Mr. Bingley's brother-in-law is who? Charles Bingley, right? So sorry, his brother, yeah, that's a brother-in-law of Charles Bingley. And Mr. Hurst does almost nothing. He is a useless person. He just he enjoys eating and entertain himself by playing cards. So he used to play card, and he does not talk sensible talk, and he's just glutton. He used to eat much. That is the character of Bingley Hertz, Mr. Hertz. So Bingley family, who is in Bingley family? Charles Bingley, very important character, Charles Bingley. And two sisters here. One sister is not written, Mrs. Hertz. She is married sister, right? So these are the brother sister. They all live together in one place, right? And Mr. Charles is a very good character, very good person, and emotional. But sisters are very cruel and cunning kind of lady, both the sisters, right? So that these are the characters. Now next is Lucas family. So here Lucas family, Sir William Lucas and Mrs. Lucas and Maria Lucas. Charlotte Lucas. Charlotte Lucas is very important character here. So first we will see the wait a minute, Lucas. Okay. Yes, Sir William Lucas. Sir William Lucas is a friend and neighbor of the Bennet family. They are neighbor of Bennet family. He is pleasant but not overly deep or intellectual. Okay, average mind person, and is obsessed with having been granted knighthood. And he is father to Charlotte and Maria Lucas. So, Mr. Lucas and Mrs. Lucas. Mr. Lucas, Sir William Lucas, and Mrs. Lucas have two daughters, Charlotte Lucas and Maria Lucas. And here, uh, what is that's a Mr. Lucas is not, they are Bennet family's neighbor, and Mr. Lucas is pleasant but not much intelligent, right? So that is Mr. Lucas. And Mrs. Lucas is of course wife of Mr. Lucas, and she is wait a minute, Mrs. Lucas is married to Sir William and is Charlotte and Maria's mother. And Mrs. Bennet often taunts Mrs. Lucas with gossip about the potential marital success of Bennet girls, right? So these are like very what we can say, that gossiping type of. So both Mrs. Bennet and Mrs. Lucas, they used to do gossiping. We can understand this way. But yes, Charlotte Lucas is a good girl and very understanding, matured girl, Charlotte Lucas. And she she is she shows her immaturity, right? So Charlotte Lucas is Elizabeth's best friend, and yes, she is Elizabeth's best friend and the Bennet's neighbor, and Sir William's daughter. Her attitude on marriage as a pragmatic transaction rather than as a romantic attachment stand in stark contrast to Elizabeth's. She eventually marries Mr. Collins after Elizabeth rejects his proposal. She is very practical girl. She is not much emotional. However, she is Elizabeth's friend, and Elizabeth is emotional girl, but she is not much emotional. She takes decision. She is a pragmatic decision and matured. She is a matured girl. Now her sister, younger sister, is Maria. Maria Lucas, Charlotte's younger sister. Maria is an empty headed as her father, not intelligent, and she is never featured in novel outside of her presence on the trip to visit Charlotte with Sir William and Elizabeth. So not she's a minor character and younger sister of Charlotte, and not brilliant girl like Charlotte, right? Now Lucas family, who is important? Charlotte Lucas is important. She's Elizabeth's friend and she takes very pragmatic decision for life, and she's not much emotional but more practical, unlike Elizabeth. So that is from Lucas family. Now moving to next is Gardiner family. So Mr. Gardiner and Mrs. Gardiner. Mr. Gardiner, Elizabeth's maternal uncle, is a merchant, and and an upright and intelligent man, though he is in a lower social class than the Bennets are. Mr. Gardiner is respectful and distinguished, even impressing Darcy with his mannered behavior. So Mr. Gardiner is Mrs. Bennet's brother actually, and he's very understanding, very matured fellow and respectful fellow, distinguished personality, and that's why Darcy gets impressed with Mr. Gardiner. So this is Mr. Gardiner. Now Mrs. Gardiner, Mrs. Bennet's sister-in-law, of course, acts as a level-headed maternal figure to Elizabeth, because she is a motherly figure, maternal figure to Elizabeth and Jane, and compensating for Mrs. Bennet's inadequacy in this regard, and she tries to take decisions, and she's matured kind of lady. She's an intelligent, caring and sensible woman. Austen uses the Gardiners as a means to explore the value of personality over class distinction. Overall, Mrs. Gardiner is very positive character, very good lady, takes decision, matured lady, and caring and motherly. Right. So this is and basically this is Mr. Gardiner is Mrs. Bennet's brother, and Mrs. Gardiner, of course, brother, sister-in-law, right? Last family here we are going to meet. Otherwise, number of characters are there, but here I have heard a little. I have written a little. Now that is Lady Catherine, De Barrow family. So De Barrow family, Lady Catherine, mother, Lady Catherine De Barrow, Darcy's aristocratic aunt, and Mr. Collins' patron. So he patroness. So here we can see that Darcy Collins also Mr. Darcy is somewhat related with Mr. Collins also. Who is Mr. Collins? I'm going to tell later on. Right? Is a sharp-tongued woman obsessed with flaunting her wealth and social superiority. She advises people without socialization on every aspect of their lives and suffers only flattery. So she is superficial lady, and she has snobbish lady. She has what we can say that she's obsessed with the wealth and social superiority, and this way she's a superficial lady. But important thing is that Lady Catherine de Barrow, Darcy's aristocratic aunt, and Mr. Collins' patronage. So when we will discuss the plot, you will be able to understand. Now Miss de Barrow, daughter, Lady Catherine, and Miss de Barrow, Lady Catherine's daughter, is a frail, weak and sickly woman who is overly pampered by her mother, because she is sick, so she is much taken care by her mother. She speaks little in the novel but seems to be generally good natured. Lady Catherine had wanted Darcy to marry Miss de Barrow, which is the main reason she disapproves of Darcy's union with Elizabeth. So actually Mrs. de Barrow wants to get Miss like her daughter married with Mr. Darcy, and that's why when Mr. Darcy William Darcy shares that he's going to get married with Elizabeth, so she negates and she is not ready. who Lady Catherine or mother, right? So this is these are the major characters. Now important character, other important character, Mr. Colin. So, who is Mr. Collins? Mr. Collins is a distant cousin of Bennet family to whom Longbourn, this a place, has been entailed, and he is mostly a comic character because of his awkward mix of obsession and pride, as well as the tiresome formalities of his speech. Even after he marries Charlotte Lucas, Mr. Collins remains largely unchanged. He's a funny kind of character, careless and what we cartoon character, we can say that, not mature, much matured, and very what we can say awkward, and he wants to take over the property because Bennett family has five daughters, and there was rule that mm, girls, that the property cannot be inherited to girls. So this way Mr. Collins want to become son-in-law of their family, so that all the property will be inherited to him this way. But then she all the, like Elizabeth, she denies for marriage, and Charlotte Lucas takes interest in Mr. Collins because he is a settle fellow, and he also gets ready with Lucas, and they get married, and they living happily, they live happily, like. But what happened after marriage, he is unchanged, right? So this is the Collins character. Now Mr. Wickham is a very important character here, because that's a at last, however, Mr. Wickham is becomes a good person, but basically he's a crooked kind of fellow, Mr. Wickham, and military man, and here I am not able to get, wait a minute, I have to take out, but yes, I will tell you that Mr. Wickham is a not very good uh, person, because he is somewhat, he is a little bit tricky, and he play George Wickham. His full name is Mr. George Wickham, and Wickham is an officer in the local military regiment and appears to be a very model of gentleman, and in reality he is a liar, hypocrite, and an opportunist. He thinks nothing, right? So that's a, he is disloyal, hypocrite, and opportunist person, right? So this way these are the other characters. Two characters are also important. Then Mr. Philip, here I'm not going to read for these characters, but yes, Mrs. Phillips and Mrs. Philip Bennet's Sally sister, and then Colonel Foster, that's a leader of Wickham's regiment, Mrs. Foster, Colonel Foster's wife. So that's enough, because many characters are there which I haven't written here. These are characters are enough to know. But yes, finally I'm telling you that here we have met six families, in which first family, Bennett family, is very important, where we have met husband and wife, Mr. and Mrs. Bennett. They have five daughters, and sequence is Jane, then Elizabeth, then Mary, then Catherine, and youngest one is Lydia, right? And here most of the time we meet Jane and Elizabeth, and then Lydia at last, right? Otherwise other two, Mary and Catherine, not discuss much, and then they enjoy their life. This is Bennett family. Then Darcy family is also important, because hero is Darcy. So Fitzwilliam Darcy, he's a brother, and his sister's name is Georgiana Darcy, and Colonel Fitzwilliam. So these are the family members. But here two character in Darcy family, Mr. Fitzwilliam, no doubt he is the hero of the novel, and Georgiana Darcy's sister, right? Now moving to third family, Bingley family. Bingley family, Charles Bingley is also important, because at last he becomes Jane's husband, and he likes Jane's, and he has major character, he's a major character. And then He has two sisters, Caroline Bingley, and one married sister, Mrs. Hertz. She's married. She both are very crooked and very rough, rude girls. And Mrs. Hertz is married with Mr. Hertz. Name is not given, right? Third family, Lucas family. Here, which character is important? Charlotte Lucas is very important, and three other members like Mr. Lucas, Mrs. Lucas, and Maria Lucas. Maria Lucas not discussed much, and these all are three minor characters. But Charlotte Lucas is important because when a story moves, we come to know that she gets married with Mr. Collins, right? Now next is Gardiner family. Yeah, yes, the average, they are good character. Mr. Gardiner is Mrs. Bennet's brother, and she's sister-in-law Mrs. Gardiner, and they help, they are very helpful, and very good, both are matured, good pair, right? Now here, Lady Catherine, she's mother, and she's aristocratic aunt, Darcy's aunt, and she has a daughter, Miss Debarrow, and she is very quiet, shy kind of girl. Overall, good character, the Miss Debarrow. Right, other two characters are very important. Mr. Collins, because Mr. Collins is a cartoon kind of fellow, and he's interested to get married with one of the Bennet sisters so that property can be inherited to him. But then he is denied for marriage. He does not take much burden because Charlotte Lucas is ready to get married with Mr. Collins, and then they live happily. And Mr. Wickham, very negative and very crooked man, and calculative person, and he is he does gossiping and all, but yes, he's a military man, right? So these are the other characters, Mrs. Philip, Colonel Foster, Mrs. Foster, and many other small characters, are minor characters are there. So that is something about characters. And now through these characters, in next slideshow I'm going to make on plot, right? Thank you so much. However, I have made already in my channel. You can visit to other videos also, where I have already made videos on Pride and Prejudice. But this is every time whenever I make, I will make something new, I'll speak something new. That's why this time I'm making another one also. So you can visit, that's English with Dr. Swati Singh. This is my channel's name, and my phone number is 9425349521. You can leave your message if you have any kind of query. Thank you so much. God bless you.